Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
Well, Square is a $50 billion fintech company founded by former Twitter owner Jack Dorsey. The payment firm's operations in Europe are now spearheaded by Irishman and former banker John O'Byrne, and he joins us now to tell us about his vision for further growth. John, you were the head of Bank of Ireland's mortgage and business banking units, but at the end of 2023 you joined Square. So why did you decide to make this move?
Karl, morning. Pleasure to be here. Well, I guess I've been a banker for a long time and certainly, enjoyed the roles in Bank of Ireland, particularly running the mortgage bank and the business bank. That puts you in touch with an awful lot of people and a lot of businesses. But I never set out with an ambition, growing up to be a banker. And I was always excited by the prospect of working on the fintech side in terms of what that could deliver. And as you say, Jack founded Square in 2009, and we can talk about the growth of the business later on. But I was really attracted to it in terms of the opportunity that it gave. It's a design leader in terms of really clever, beautiful, integrated point-of-sale hardware for businesses. And the ethos of the business is to never let a seller miss a sale. And it's really about using technology as a solution to customers' problems. It's also a fascinating business to be part of, and particularly this role, it gives me the opportunity not just to focus on Ireland, but also across the UK and some European markets. So it had a lot of desirable characteristics that really were a fit for me for where I was at that time.
And how closely have you been working with Jack Dorsey, and what have you learned from him along the way?
Jack came back more into Square around October 2023, where he effectively stepped into the day-to-day CEO role for the business globally. So he's been very, very, very heavily involved in terms of setting out the strategy for the business and bringing it back to those roots of really good design, a really clear focus on sellers and the underlying merchants who use the technology, and trying to get the business to rediscover its ability for innovation to be able to take that next leap. I think, what do you learn from somebody like him? You have to have a lot of courage in running these businesses. Yeah, you take your strategy, you make it, you roll it out, and you commit to it. And I think one of the most fascinating elements of the business is that it's so purposeful underneath that. And I think that's one of the things that really comes through to me in a really strong fashion. So that purpose for us here in Europe is to grow the Square brand and get as many customers as possible using the business.
And John, you spoke about Jack Dorsey's involvement in building out the strategy for Square. You were responsible then for implementing that internationally. How did you approach that?
I think the first thing was just bringing us back and centering around what everybody in the business agreed on, right? Which is that our sellers, the merchants who run the businesses, they need to be at the heart of what we do. So we have a really vibrant and growing network of businesses using our technology here in Ireland. But when you cut through it, like 99% of businesses in Ireland and most European countries are actually SMEs. And who doesn't want to support their local business? So whether that's the likes of Grawl in the cafe down there in New Ross, or many of the restaurants that we would have signed up around the country, or some of the retail stores, what you're doing is helping them drive employment for their customers and to bring that through. And that means then that you've got to be able to speak to sellers and to customers in a language that makes sense for them. So what is it that these products are doing? They might be fintech, they might have software as a service, they might have lots of complex sounding names, but when you strip away all that noise, you're trying to take away the complexity of running a business and make it as simple as possible. And that means, how do we make it easier for them to run their business? How do we help them reduce their costs? How do we give time back to those owners? And how do we give them insights that help them grow quicker? And I think one thing that we really focus on here is, and across any of the markets that we're in, is how do we act and appear as local as possible? So make sure that we hire people, who can really talk and engage with those sellers, but also make sure that we're visible in terms of what we're doing. And we have some really good, social media pieces where effectively we let our customers be our best advocates. And we wouldn't really do traditional advertising, but much more focus on, social media clips of going in, showing those business owners at work how they're benefiting from the system, and that's much more compelling then in terms of trying to grow the business.
And have you been measuring the success of that type of testimonial-based marketing?
Yeah, look, anything in a business like this has to be able to prove its worth. So we would have a number of metrics that we would always look at, whether that's the number of views, whether it's the number of followers, whether it's the number of referrals, and we're always trying to use that to bring that into, is it driving focus either onto Square, or is it driving more business owners who aren't with us to come and talk to us? And again, when you look at this as an industry, it's really interesting. So I would say that Europe, even more so than the US, is not as far advanced in terms of the digitization of businesses underneath. And when I say digitization, I just mean that they're using technology to strip out costs from the business and to be able to take away some of those, routine, recurring tasks. So really simple example, if you take something like a bakery, we like to get different owners to come into us that meet us with us in the office and that talk about how they grew their business, what's benefiting, what's working for them, what's not. But really simple examples of people moving off legacy technology. So, if you go into a store and you see there's the black box, there's a till, you tap your card on a black box, but it's not really joined up. So if you're somebody running a bakery, and we had some people come in, they would say, look, I would get to the end of the day, it would be 5 o'clock in the evening, and then I'd have to spend an hour and a half reconciling exactly what happened during the day, who paid in cash, who paid by card, add up all the numbers, make sure that they work. And by putting something like Square in, which is an integrated point of sale system, every single thing is calculated and happens in real time. So you don't have to wait to the end of the day. You're seeing that, second by second. You can view it on your phone or remotely if you're not there. So you get a sense of, are things growing as quickly as they could? Or is there something happening that I need to intervene in? And then that helps drive lots more data-led insights that, you can say, okay, actually this day last year, the system will pop up and say you sold more of this product than others. And you being a month ahead of that now can start to plan for that rather than be surprised on the day and either be over or under the stock.
Square competes with several companies in the payments and point of sale space. These include PayPal, Shopify and Stripe. How do you compete against those well-known brands?
You have to have a better product and you have to be really clear about the value that you bring. So certainly for some of the people that you mentioned there, they typically compete more in the e-commerce or online space. And what Square has been very good at is carving out its niche within in-store, so point of sale in-store, but also for any business that also wants to have an online presence. So that kind of multi-channel, multi-strategy approach. And we do two things that really, I think, drives differentiation for Square. One is we're incredibly transparent, and the product is so simple to set up that it takes away the complexity for you. And underneath that, what we're trying to do is really two things. One, we want to make sure that any seller never misses the sale. And secondly, we want to simplify how they run their business with leading technology products that just work.
And John, Square's growth has been headlined by turnover figures of approximately $50 million. So talk to us about your priorities within an organisation of this size and scale.
So we try and make our priorities very, very simple, Karl. It comes back to how are we going to continue to build and grow the businesses here? The key thing for me is scaling the number of customers that we have, because that creates a network effect for us. So, for example, we hosted a supper club here in Dublin. And again, we chose a great location of high fidelity in Smithfield. And we did a panel talk there where restaurant owners could actually hear from their peers, how they build the businesses they love. And what I thought was really interesting in that was, of those successful businesses, they're not the ones following trends. They're the ones really working on their craft and bringing to market what they think makes a real difference. And it's the same thing for Square. We have a big focus on making sure that we've got the right people in the right places. You've always got to hit your growth and your revenue targets. That just comes as part of the role. But how you do it is how creating that bit of space for the business to be able to develop. So a key thing for us, as you might have seen, and we'll just focus on Ireland for a second, is expanding some of the partnerships that we have. So we partner with the Restaurant Association of Ireland just before Christmas. We did a partnership with Squid, which is a loyalty business, because again, we felt that that was providing something that was best in class for our customers, and therefore we were able to integrate it so that it works really well in lockstep with what we do.
And just on the topic of partnerships, is the ultimate partnership not partnering with banks because they have such a foothold in this market, with 65% of retailers using their services in this area right across Europe?
Yeah, I wouldn't rule anything out on that front, Carl. We do partner with banks in the UK. And again, it's something from a partnership side that we're constantly looking to grow. I think the key is really trying to find those partners who share the same customer base. And again, part of the ethos of Square is, are we helping businesses grow? Are we facilitating that kind of economic empowerment? And how does our product and our services really add value to them? So when you're looking across different partners, can you do it in the right place at the right time?
And you may have seen that in recent weeks, BNY Mellon in Wexford, a multinational financial services company, announced that they were closing with the loss of 300 jobs. What countries is Ireland now competing with today for back office financial services roles?
Yeah, I did see that, and I mean, look, it's never good news when you see something like that. So I'd always have a lot of empathy for anybody impacted. Look, Ireland, as it always has, is competing across the board with multiple geographies. Like, that's both across Europe and it's outside Europe. We would see, I think, if you bring it back to the financial services space, I think there's just over 70 plus payment businesses that are located with their European headquarters here in Dublin. I think there's 40 plus wholesale banks on the financial services side. So traditionally in the space, Ireland has done great work in attracting that. And that, what retains that is making sure that you've got access to the right talent, got access to the right people, that it's a good place to do business. I'd also sit on the board of Dublin Chamber. And again, it's making sure that we've got a city and an infrastructure and an environment across the country that is conducive to that. But you're always competing. And I think when you see things like that exit, it reminds you of that. Ireland is a small country. We've great access into Europe. We've access to the US. And we've got to continue to play to our strengths and build on that.
And John, how would you describe the company's approach to innovation and technology, and how it identifies trigger points for new ideas?
Oh, listen, this is a company that is just built for innovation, Carl. Like, if you go back to the origin story of Square, you had the founders effectively were trying to set up a new business. They were in a coffee shop, believe it or not, and they went to buy some flowers for one of their partners. And when they got to the florist said, "Look, I only take cash. There's no ATM, so I can't sell it to you." And that effectively is the same principle today. Never let a seller miss a sale. That's where they basically invented using the iPhone, or sorry, not the iPhone, but the phone as a means to be able to take payment. And you see that innovation just continuously work its way through the business. So even last year here in Ireland, we launched Tap to Pay on iPhone. And that's something that, as it comes live in other markets, you'll always see Square there at the forefront of it. And, if you have the Square app on your phone, whether you're running a garden sale, or as I found when I was in New York last year on Fifth Avenue in one of the kind of big high profile stores that are there, some of the sales assistants have their iPhones out, and that's how they're taking payments. So you take your phone out, you open the Square app, you key in the amount, tap your card on the phone, and that's it. It's done. And I think across the board, from an innovation side, you'll constantly see that coming from Square. One of the key things is trying to speed up what we call product velocity, so the speed that we're bringing new things to market. And in fact, over the last couple of weeks, you'll have seen with all of the debate around AI, that Square has also launched an open source AI model of its own called Goose. And again, that just goes back to the fabric of what's in the company. How do you constantly innovate to start to stay ahead and bring the best solutions for customers?
There's an awful lot of talk, of course, about frictionless payments. What do you think the future holds in that respect? Are we moving over the next number of years to being in a position where we'll pay for everything with our eyes or even through using our fingerprint?
I just think anything is possible. Even, I would say, 7 or 8 years ago, I used to run one of the credit card and debit card portfolios for a bank. And when we went to the card provider, they were showing us what they were thinking even at that point. And they had this great video of someone who had taken, the little chip that's on your bank card.
Yeah.
And they had gotten it put into the webbing of their finger and thumb so they could wave their hand over a contactless terminal to be able to make the payment purely for shock value, right? I think, look, that kind of frictionless payment is constantly evolving. And if you look even over the last couple of years from it used to be completely disconnected from a business. Now it's fully integrated. You're talking about tap to pay online. You see that your card details are safely held in the right way, so that when you go into your browser on your phone or on your laptop, your card details are there and you're ready to make the payment. I think that will just continuously evolve. And again, it's making sure that it evolves in a safe way. I think certainly here in Ireland and the UK and Europe, you have what's called secure customer authentication. And again, that's making sure that whilst it's frictionless, it needs to be safe. So you need to make sure that it's your money that you're authorising and that nobody else is able to access it.
And John, finally, with the ever-evolving advancements in technology and, of course, cyber attacks and digital fraud, and then, of course, when you add in the widespread deployment of AI, what are the prevailing threats to Square?
I think the prevailing threats are probably competition. There's just constant evolution, innovation in the space. Are you able to stay ahead? Are you able to provide the best services that you can? We would be extremely aware and cognizant of the different cyber threats and fraud that are there. And again, we invest heavily into making sure that we've got the best protective tools for our customers. And again, I think that's one of the real selling points of Square, that, I've used this phrase before, Kyle, you might have heard me say it, like it democratizes and flattens the playing field for businesses. So businesses are able to access the type of tools, including that kind of threat repellent with something like Square that they could never afford on themselves. And I think for all businesses, we want to make sure that, we're facilitating commerce, we're making it easy for people to do business, but that comes with an obligation to make that as safe as possible.
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was John O'Byrne, Executive Director with Square, and I'd like to thank John for providing us with a fascinating insight into this global payments firm.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.